Biggest influencers of government are people, right? And people, people make the world go around, and people influence government in different ways, right? The most direct way is when they vote for government officials during elections. Other ways, and this is where money gets involved at different levels. Um, there are many different what I call poles of power, right? In this world, we have over 3,000 billionaires. And in the United States alone, we have 900 billionaires, which is interesting since we are less than 5% of the world's population. But at this point, the United States accounts for about 35% of world production of goods and services, right? So we, by far, are the most powerful country in the world. But we are not all powerful, and there are many limitations to our power. And sometimes many Americans need to be reminded of that. They get this idea that we're the most powerful, so we just do anything we want and not understand how the world actually works, right? So I mentioned billionaires because because a lot of times money becomes extremely influential. Because with money, people with money can fund the things that influence other people, right? Whether it's during election time, they can give donations. Yes, there are certain limitations where you can give directly to candidates, but you also have organizations that support certain causes that sometimes can get unlimited money. A lot of people call this dark money. So, for example, a person who's a billionaire, and it doesn't have to be a billionaire, it could be a person that's worth 9 figures or whatever. But when you have a whole lot of cash on hand, you can make decisions to influence certain things. So let's say you're anti-choice or anti-abortion, right? You can start buying ad space from television stations to go against abortion, for example, and you can do that almost to an unlimited degree, and so this may help a candidate that has an anti-abortion stance, even though you're not giving unlimited funds to that particular candidate, right? Other ways big money can be extremely influential is big money owns the means of communication, right? Whether those are television stations, whether that's, let's say, online companies. People go online sometimes to get their news. People turn on the TV to get their news. A lot of people get their news still from radio, right? Radio is still very significant when people are driving to work, etc. And if you have big enough money, you can have ownership of a lot of these things. Now, what people should not confuse is that money is not the only form of power. It is just a very significant and more direct form of power. Throughout history, you have a lot of people that weren't wealthy, but became very powerful. And look at some of our presidents. Joe Biden wasn't very wealthy. Barack Obama wasn't very wealthy. They may have gained a lot of wealth after, or maybe in the run-up to being president, and certainly after, by selling things like books and things like that. And then after that, charging 6 figures to give speeches, etc. Right? So money is not the only source of power. In fact, you have a lot of billionaires and multimillionaires who clash, who believe in different things. But when a lot of these powerful people work together, it can be extremely influential on their objectives and how it affects people in general. There are also things like powerful lobby groups, powerful organizations. Take the AARP, for example, because the people that belong to AARP tend to be older people. Many of them already are very established, etc. And many of these people vote, right? If you look at the demographics of people who vote, a lot of retired people, etc., vote, and a lot of them have time to pay attention to things like politics. So when you have groups like that, and they may have a position on something, they may be able to influence those who are their members, right? You could even stretch that to to groups that are directly political. So the ARP looks out for the interests of elderly Americans and retired Americans, right? But you have other groups out there. You have political groups. You have political parties, and people who belong to political parties, and these political parties have heads, and these people can be very influential, right? You have, let's say, in certain countries, you have, for example, you have people who've led different political groups, sometimes just through politics, sometimes violently, right? You have Mao Zedong that created communist China with the Chinese Communist Party. You have Joseph Stalin that created what was then the Soviet Union. That was arguably the second most powerful country in the world between the end of World War II, right after the United States, between the end of World War II in 1945 until the Soviet Union fell apart in 91. And now you have Putin trying to reclaim some of that former power. So we have what we've discussed so far is you have the structure of political, how politics is structured in the United States, and we have those things that influence it, whether it's folks that have lots of money and who have certain goals, right? You have different organizations, right? Some of them are non-governmental organizations. You have political parties, etc., right? So there's not just one secret group called the Illuminati and all this other garbage. Illuminati did exist. I mean, that was there was a prince in Europe back who thought, a few hundred years ago, who thought the Catholic Church had too much sway in Europe. And so this prince, who was an atheist, wanted to find other like-minded monarchs who had power in Europe in order to secretly fight the Catholic Church. But then, that was then. This is now the Catholic Church's power, political power in that sense, we had very direct power over European monarchs a few hundred years ago, has since waned. Now they have, Catholic Church is still the largest Christian denomination, and with its head, the Pope in Vatican City, which is technically a separate country after the Concordat of 1922 in Italy, where Vatican City became its own country. So the Pope, as head of the largest Christian denomination, wields a lot of power, a lot of influence on different aspects of society in different countries where there are many Catholics, right? Or countries that Catholics can affect, right? So we see different forms of power. Power with money, power with just organizations, etc. I'll end this by saying, for many of the things we want in this world, it's like a giant tug of war, right? Where if you have a goal of your idea of how the world should look or how your community should look, you want to go find out about the laws of that community, what's allowed, etc., right? You want to maybe start a not-for-profit or start a for-profit service that whether it's like a news service, internet service, etc., to influence people, to get them to follow what you believe, what your goal is of what you believe society should look like, or whatever your stated goal is, right? The reason why I call it a big tug of war, if you get enough people on one side to help fight for your goal, then that will win over not enough people on the other side fighting against it. So with that said, that's my vlog on what I call poles of power in this world. And I would like to end it I like that old Greek saying that said, we can because we think we can. So we have to think we can achieve whatever goal it is that we want to achieve in society, including getting rid of the ghettos that we see in many of our inner cities, etc., by uplifting people, educating people. We have to think we can achieve these things, and then we once we have that vision, we set the goal and we use the levers of power in order to achieve those goals. Thank you.